you know, and
But you feel like the Earth has turned a corner and reality is catching up to that, or needs to catch up to it?
it's happening. Whether I mean reality. What is that? You know, reality is basically your.
What is the word you want to use to describe?
No,
what
reality's
has
good.
changed?
Reality's good, but what I'm saying is that
I know I don't really believe
reality is externally, let's say, whatever you are feeling internally. That's reality. So everyone's is different. I can't be 100% sure that what you're seeing is exactly what I'm seeing, and that's the beauty of it. And we're all programming our grid. Everyone is, and everyone has that power. Some people say that, you know, there's an initial grid programming person, and that would be, you know, God, if you want to call them that, or you could call them anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, and you don't even have to believe it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's you know, I think most people, or dare I say, you know, intuit that things are all connected somehow, even if it's on a very superficial level, that you're like, oh, I was doing this and then I thought that and then that came up and wow, that was weird. Yeah, coincidence. Well, I mean, that's good. I mean, it's all good, really. I mean,
okay, wait.
look,
So
anyway.
So in this recent time we've gone through, how has your internal process noticeably changed? I know that historically you would sometimes be reading books by different, like Comte de Saint-Germain or something, and you would sometimes do internal processes. I forget the words you used, your treatments?
Yes.
You would do treatments on yourself. How, like in this time where we've perhaps been more internal, how have your internal practices been going?
I've widened my scope to sort of look at as many sources that come my way of information, and I find points of confluence between these different sources. I mean, when it comes to the spiritual world, if you want to call it that, it's not about proving something empirically. It's about understanding by your intuition, which is an intelligence, rather than going with the mind, which is often a device that has become accustomed to processing words and images all the time, and that becomes a trap into itself. And actually the third eye is like a little cell, you know, and that's where your true being is trapped. I don't want to say trapped, but let's say engaged with your physical body. And the physical body is a gift. I mean, and that's changed for me, my relationship with my body. Because even though I've fluctuated in weight and maybe I've been more loose in like the ways that I eat and things like that, I'm very aware of it. And I'm very aware of how I can talk to my body and listen to it, and how the DNA becomes responsive to my communications, which all it takes is for you to talk to it. I mean, there's no method, you just talk to it. And I mean, I had a broken knee, you know, kneecap, and it's healed very well, and the leftover, you know, tingle from sciatica 2 years ago is going away, and I understand more how my body moves, and if I need to do something that I'm not accustomed to doing, I just talk to my body, and my body kind of walks me through it. So the body is like an animal, I mean, that you really sort of take care of. And But the key, what has changed for me is that I now understand that the intelligence comes from the heart, and it comes from that intuitive connection by stimulating all of the body through the entire chain of the chakras, and focusing on your pineal gland, and it's not complicated. Just by understanding that that's what you're doing it.
Right. You don't need to do a practice.
It's interesting. It's interesting as a sort of comparison to this. I mean, so one idea. I mean, look, everything is all of the external reality is completely malleable. So now, one indication that to me shows that the Earth is entering a different density is that all over the world, structures are being discovered. It's not like people just talk about the pyramids. I just saw something, which is actually the beauty of YouTube. You know, I think YouTube is a wonderful thing because it really gives people access to information firsthand, and you can do with it at will. You know, and so, but they found a pyramid in France that is underground, and it has all these perfectly carved tunnels that the scientists say, well, we don't really understand. And the same has been said for the pyramids and for Machu Picchu, or I don't know, the walls of Cusco. Well, I'm not sure the walls of Cusco because that's more recent, I think. But let's say, well, the pyramids in Tenochtitlan, or I mean, any of these structures all over the world. Also in Croatia, there's monoliths. I mean, all of it. So, how do you explain that people all those years ago had such advanced machinery that could make such perfect cuts? You know, that a modern machine, which would be like this, you know, big monster with teeth that goes around and digs tunnels and stuff, it leaves a trace. It's not like finesse.
Yes.
But when you look at these antiquities and buildings of antiquity, it's like you can't even put a credit card in the crevices because the stones, they're not even glued together. They're so perfectly fit together that even if the place is abandoned, it still stands. Whereas a skyscraper, I'm sure if it was abandoned, it would probably collapse in like 50 years or something. Or who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, the Empire State is like going to be 100 pretty soon. I mean, it's kind of like amazing to think that's 100 years old. And it's and it needs care. And they are considering how to, maintain it in better ways. So...
Yeah,
but anyway, so that makes me think that, for example, all these advancements in technology that keep coming forth, especially with the sense of communication, I think that the caveat is that you have to be a savvy consumer of that, because those are things based on that they give you experiences of like another dimension, quote unquote, but really they're still in this one. And what I'm talking about is that those buildings and the unidentified, what is that?
Barrel.
Diosue. Thank you. Things, okay, so like Madame Blavatsky, in the 19th century, there was a novelist. I think his name was Lytton. I forget. No, that was the... I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I know him. But this is a... it's a different writer. He wrote something called... I think it was called the Race of Man or something like that.
Oh, yeah, more like in Madame Blavatsky's Me.
Yeah. So, in that book, they talk about an energy which the theosophists really understand.
It's a Merkaba.
Oh, how
It's the
nice.
Star of David.
Oh, how beautiful. There's this energy that they refer to that's called vril. Vril. V-R-I-L. And vril is the energy that comes forth from completely, or at least opening more, your brain to the areas that are still unused. Okay, so the ETs, I mean, I could go on and on about this, but in a nutshell, the ETs who adjusted, let's say, the evolution of Homo sapiens, they put certain veils in there to keep them from knowing who they really are.
The consciousness that are driving the human animal machines.
Yes, but we have complete free will. The essence of the universe is free will. If there is no free will in some area, then you know that something is not right. In other words, there's no sense of morality in the spiritual world. You're free to do whatever you want.
Right, so how do you parse that with all the moral systems?
It's all arbitrary. It's arbitrary, and there may be motives hidden behind some of them. But just to get back to the Brill for a minute. Brill. By harnessing that energy that is still, let's say, latent, in the brain, that's how, say, the Orions, for example, can move, like big bases into the moon and put them underground. Or there will be like a war on Mars. Or let's make it simpler. All these like unidentified, I think now there's a different name. It's not UFOs, it's like unidentified. It's a different acronym. It's not UFO anymore. It's the military uses something different.
Yeah.
They move without sound. They move against wind currents. There is no
visible means of propulsion,
and that is the Brill. So if you were utilizing your brain power completely,
do you think this is a physical brain thing or a multidimensional?
It's multidimensional.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because at that point, then your body will be less dense. So you can become denser or less dense.
I've been feeling. I was commenting this to Sharon a couple days ago that I really feel over the last year, especially, that I have become very dense compared to how I felt 2 years ago, that I was so close to the ether realms. I was so close to interacting with the ether realms all the time. And lately, like I've been doing meditations for years where I let a waterfall flow through my system to cleanse out the energy. And never before have I had this vision, but lately I feel like mud is kicking up and gunking out of my feet. Like I feel so dense right now. There's so much heavy energy.
Because it goes in every which direction, and it combines in any possible combination. You can be enlightened, and you can be feeling denser. You can be enlightened and understand unity with others or not.
Are you feeling more dense than lately, would you say?
No, actually. I think I was feeling bouts of anger.
Yes.
Until relatively recently.
Thank you very much, okay?
Thank you.
Sure. So when you're ready, you can take that.
Thank you so much.
Right, thank you.
But the whole thing is that that really had to do mostly with things in my personality that get triggered. And of course, that all goes back to childhood. And when you understand that really it's none of your business what other people might be thinking about you, sure, if it's a close friend, you tell them, well, this is not where I'm coming from, blah, 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 and then there's an understanding, and I think that helps everyone. But really, I think we help mostly by example. And so understanding the nature of this trigger, I become more sensitive and I can actually feel when anger is coming forth. I feel it. And suddenly like, oh, I feel so heavy all of a sudden.
So you get to make better choices about that sometimes.
I get to make better choices because when there's no anger, or let's say, you know, you have an awareness of anger and an awareness of fear, and you can, you know, deal with them, then your intuition gets stronger. And your intuition will say, okay, so grab that dish now and grab this cloth and do it like this. And you won't feel like it's so difficult. I mean, that's a very simple example, to do this sink full of dishes.
I've heard that you've made a performance art out of using that as a metaphor for life.
Yes. I mean, it's basically Tonglin, but with the idea of dishwashing. I mean, that's all it is. You know, one thing goes in and another one comes out. So, but you're gonna, you know, I mean, the dishes, it's sort of like an intentional, I mean, I guess you could say it's like you know, like when in some rituals they wash feet or something, you know, or, you know, they pour baptize them. I mean, of course, baptism.
Or clean statues of gods or lingams or whatever, yeah.
I mean, in Santeria, you know, you use certain
eggshells,
fragrances, and certain cleaning products mixed together,
yeah.
And you mop the floor, and then you pour the water out, and I know people might be like, well, I mean, I'm from Puerto Rico, and that kind of stuff is more common there. I don't think it's that far-fetched here because, you know, people have heard about everything at some point. But over there, it's very clear when you do something like that, there's no question that it changes the atmosphere. You know, like all these ideas of smudging and everything, I mean, you feel it. You feel that there's a difference.
But it could also be the ritualistic action of cleaning the external world helps you clean your internal world.
And I would even dare say that it goes from inside out. That the actual ritual of doing it, you're cognizant, you're one with this process, and so you're affecting a change. So
it should be about 18 inch if we're splitting it in half.
Okay.
Their preference is contactless payments.
Okay, so you're gonna put $20. I'll put $20 using my phone, I guess.
Well, no. I mean, you can take this if you want. Do you use cash or do you not use cash?
I don't use it that much. I mean, I could send you.
Because you could also just.
Do you want me to send you a PayPal?
Yeah, you could also just do that. And
so how much do I send you?
18.
Okay.
18 will be enough.
Okay. See, again, I mean, like these are, it's all abstraction. So now I'm using PayPal. See, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, sure, there is like a record, like a paper trail of the things that you do, but there has been one, even in the days of credit cards or, I don't know, the FBI checking ledgers in the 50s. I mean...
Are you a criminal?
No, I don't think so. I mean... Or
Why
maybe,
are you concerned about anyone policing your actions if you don't feel like you're a criminal?
Because I don't like it when people... But that's my thing. If people make assumptions of who I am based on my behavior, I mean, I suppose...
Does that affect you?
Sometimes it pushes my buttons because I think the behavior is lending itself to misinterpretation. But generally, you know, to be quite honest, I don't think about it that much. So, I mean, for me, for example, to not be so keen about being tracked, it's not really about wanting privacy. It's about me wanting to have agency. I'm not quite sure if that explains it.
Well, I recently, you know, when I shaved my head this year, there was somebody who kept commenting in multiple different streams of where I post online. You look very nice now. Don't ever grow that horrible beard back. You look very nice now. Don't ever grow that terrible long hair back. And this is somebody who's been following me for 10 years or so. So why they would choose to say that to me, I didn't understand.
Yeah, I get that.
And I commented to them that I didn't enjoy that policing of my choices and my look. I mean, it's my body, it's my life, it's my experience, so I don't own it, but at the same time, like, I don't appreciate somebody telling me what I should and shouldn't do.
Right.
And recently that person commented on a picture I posted on Facebook, okay, enough beard.
Oh, and no. See, well, that's exactly what I'm getting at. I don't... Look, I mean, it's...
Well, I ended up blocking that person, and that person said, "Look, oh, I'm very hurt by this." And I said, "You should maybe think about how you have hurt me, and that these are your actions. I specifically told you that I don't enjoy you speaking to me in this way, and if you like me, you should like me as I am, however I am, not tell me how I should be to please you."
Right.
But at this point, I would rather not have any more comments from you. And he said, "But I've worshipped you and adored you online for years." And I said, "You have never walked with me holding my hand. You are not a friend of mine." But it was interesting for me to feel triggered by that.
Yeah, and I can relate to that completely. I mean, that's exactly what I'm getting at. I don't know if like data tracking has too much to do with that. But I feel that somehow...
You still just don't like the feeling of knowing.
It's somehow like an intrusion of sorts, I think. But you know what? But the thing of it is...
That's a good point. Let us just look at that for a second. We are all one. Who is intruding on who?
That's true.
What is intruding on what?
That's true. I mean, what we do affects everything. I mean,
the guy that I was working on today, he said, "Well, you know, what's been happening the last couple years, there's been good logic to it, but it's been ramping up. And people keep thinking that it's ramping up and then it's going to be okay and everything's going to go back to normal. But I think it's just ramping up and it's going to just keep ramping up and ramping up and ramping up. And then what do we do?" And I said, "I hear what you're saying. I understand your concern. But one of the practices I learned in Buddhism, and one of the things that I loved about it, is they pitched it like this. If you were to come at me and cut off my arms and legs, I would still be free from hatred towards you because I have compassion and understanding about how confusing and painful this world, this manifestation can be. And I can always choose to be free from the suffering inflicted upon me.
Right.
There's nothing that can take away my freedom if I know that I have that choice."
Right.
And on that level, like, humans have already lost so many freedoms. The freedoms of clean air, the freedoms of clean water, the freedoms of not having to work, like, to survive.
But you know, right. But to your... Okay, no, carry on.
We've already lost so many freedoms to accept the trade of these wonderful devices and the electric lights and the pies over there and being able to have omelets without having had to raise the chickens. You know, these freedoms we've lost for these benefits. So this era we're entering to now, where we're losing a whole new slew of freedoms and getting VR helmets and more elaborate iPhone tricks and and flying cars and robot suits and whatever the fuck else we're getting. You know, a new home on Mars.
But I'm thinking that greater technologies and greater say benefits, I mean, to put it very loosely, will be gained from getting to know ourselves better, in the sense that as we stay away via meditation or via awareness or whatever it may be from the world, from the external world affecting us, then from the inside out we can affect all of the outside world and everything, and make it more like our idea of what it would be better, but it's better for everyone. So somehow in that process of creating, by following this intuition, everything changes, and you don't really need a VR set, you know, because you can, you know, it's like I always said, you know, for me, and I don't mean to go off topic, but like favorite TV shows were always, and this is very early on, like I Dream of Jeannie, Bewitched. And the reason I like these shows, and which actually I stopped watching TV pretty much after they went off the air on reruns, I mean, because I was watching them in the early 70s, not in the 60s when they came out. And, you know, I was watching them in Puerto Rico. When these shows ended their broadcast, I wasn't interested in television because intuitively I understood, and I still do, that the way in which these people in these shows, you know, like the witches or the genies or whatever you want to call them, you know, like do things, that's exactly right. It is actually like that. And the reason it's not is because of the programming that has gone on, because the ETs do that. They do that, you know. Like,
would you say that the ETs?
I'm sorry, but some of them are positively inclined and some are negatively inclined, and there's no judgment on that.
Would you say
because it's all part of the expansion?
Would you say that the majority of the ETs are in physical bodies here in this world?
No.
Or are they in another dimension, like in etheric bodies?
That's hard to. Are
ETs the same thing as aliens? Sorry, as ascended masters or angels?
Well, you can't narrow it down because it runs the gamut. You know, like angels could be from anywhere. Ascended masters are certainly from everywhere.
But are they also extraterrestrial?
But let me say this, for example. There's a Hopi prophecy that talks about the 144,000. So some people say that those 144,000 are wanderers that have come from other star systems. Like I see, and some are star seeds. I mean, well, we've talked about the Lemurian keys and the Starbarian quartzes and all that stuff. And I have, you know, I mean, you've had them. I mean, I have some, and you know, ever having those objects around. I mean, I worn them and wear them often, but I feel that it's keys of information. And is it still running?
Yeah, it was just telling me the power is running low.
Oh, okay. So anyway, so then as one goes forth with this journey into intuition, one enters a different way of being. It's like suddenly you go through a portal and you're in a different world. I mean, I don't really let me just say this. I mean, when I follow my intuition, I notice that the external world is very organized around me, and everything is at hand's reach. You know, and I feel that what happens at that moment, it transforms everything. It transforms people even. I mean, I can go into a space and feel a certain way, and I mean, this is not just, I mean, everyone does this, but it's just an awareness. You know, people react exactly to how you're feeling. You know, if you go into a place and you're like sort of giddy and feeling a sense of joy, say, people will come up to you. And they'll be like, how are you? Or, you know, I'm so and so, you know, and they'll be like, oh, so, oh, I don't know. Like yesterday, I went to this opening, and this kid who was actually one of the more, you know, like out there kids in the crowd and everything, you know, he came up to me. He's like, oh, you're almost like a mood in a way. It's like you're scratching your beard and you're like, oh, I wonder what these people are doing, you know. And I thought to myself, that's so cool that he's, you know, like interpreting something. I mean, of course everyone does, but it was so...
So I want to ask you...
He was appreciating, I suppose, what just me being there, you know, with a specific intention. And I was happy to hear that someone would be savvy to that. You know, and I think
receive you in that way, appreciate you in that way.
And look, and that's, in my opinion, you know, that's like the beauty of being a human, you know. And I mean, I think for a little bit I was like, oh God, you know, why am I even a human? It's like, this doesn't make any sense. And now I understand it, because I've always read all these years that being human is an opportunity for expansion. Because even if you're like completely veiled and you're generating thoughts, that's generating. You're creating. Creation is infinite.
Right.
You know, when
it's
all
happening
that,
with every breath.
When all that was just there, everything was static and everything was good. But everything is good anyway. So in order to get it going, veils begin in certain places.
Right. To create friction, to create tension, to create
contrast.
Yes.
And so then the person, as they go through their mission, all the entities, you know, they start seeing themselves in different ways. And it forces them, but the thing is, not everyone needs a catalyst. That's the whole thing. Maybe it's less people, but if someone has the genuine interest of, and this is why this is maybe the most important point of all, you know, if someone has the genuine interest of wanting to ascend or become a better being, then that's it. You don't need to suffer. You don't need to have that much contrast, because you've already understood that. If you understand that, then it's done. So then it's like, you don't need to have this cup of coffee spill on your head and burn you. You don't.
Well, but suffering can be much more subtle than that.
Oh, of course. I mean, it can be anything you want it to be.
So I have one more line that I want to ask you before we're done with this right now. You are historically, and I'm sure contemporarily, a poet and a visual artist and a performance artist. Mm-hmm. You're an appreciator of other artists and their process, mm-hmm. and just supporting them with your being. You're an appreciator of art galleries like Howell and other people, like helping them get their art out. Mm-hmm. And you're a consumer and appreciator of people communicating spiritual messages, like these channels and different beings that have manifested to teach, mm-hmm. and communicate truths. Mm-hmm. So do you feel like your greatest participation in the things you appreciate is just your being, or do you have a goal to create a specific type of teaching art or performance or would you like to create a book or a web page or a YouTube channel? Or do you have any kind of desire to be more of a concrete or teacher yourself, projector?
I think that everything stems out of what's the word I'm looking for? Out of the connections one makes. In the sense of this, if you're I prioritize just mostly being. And by being, I get involved in many situations that involve other people, and many of them with, common interests. That in itself is going to spark something. And the moment I see it, I know what it is. So then, I guess, well, I'm not even guessing. I think that's the kind of artist I am. I basically think that the art is when you frame it. You say, okay, so this right here, it's like all of it is art at the end of the day. But if you want to make a work of art, you're like, okay, so it starts here, and I'm going to stop there. And then that may lead to something else. I don't know if I'd be interested in being a YouTube content person, at least not now. I mean, I expect to live a long time, so I don't know. But for now, no. At least for now. But I do have, my visual vocabulary and writing that I put forth, and that gives information, and that changes you, and it also changes others. So in doing that, I think we get closer to our mission. I mean, I would like to. I mean, it's as it comes, I would like to record a couple of songs. I mean, I'm not, again, this is all I'm talking about now. This doesn't mean that it's finite. But for now, I mean, I'd be happy with somehow recording a couple of songs and having them on a physical single, like a 7/8 single. That would be an idea. I mean, to do performances, well, that's, ongoing. Sometimes folks propose a certain kind of performance, and I ponder it, and if it aligns with me, then I end up doing it. Most of the time I do. But I have to be sure, and the thing is, it all happens so seamlessly in a way that I don't even have to think about it too much. Like, I know what's right.
So your being is just your being.
The being,
is the action. Your being is the art. Your being is the mission.
It's everything. It's just being. Oh, absolutely. There's no master plan, as they say. It's more like what is happening now, and what will what gesture am I going to do in response to that? I mean, if you think about some of the, for example, great, or at least what I consider, most influential people in, modern art, let's say. I mean, Duchamp would probably be very close, if not at the top of the list. And it's not because his art is better or worse than anyone's, but because his ideas about art, revolutionized, they made it clearer what art is. And that's, it wasn't just one thing. It could be endless. I mean, when he, of course, did the famous fountain, you know, the urinal, which was basically the urinal positioned in a different way inside. I mean, you look at it and it is beautiful. It's not about effort. It's not, you know, art, the worth of art is not about effort. It's not even about a certain skill. And that's what Duchamp showed. It's about seeing, you know. I mean, I'm excited about the prospect of being in a fourth dimension, you know, the fifth dimension, if you will, fourth density, because basically, you know, everything just changed. Everything is you're generating second by second. It's almost like it would be like having the most perfect generator of images constantly, and it already is actually. But as you get closer to that consciousness, it all aligns smoother, and it's all more synchronous. It doesn't seem like a conflict, like oh, why am I getting this? I don't deserve this, or why am I, you know, having this? You know, this can't be that great because it didn't cost me that much effort to do it. It doesn't have to be about effort. It's not even, you know, it doesn't. It's about intention. It's about seeing, you know, seeing something, and sort of putting it out there somehow. And I say that very loosely because, you know, it could even be a conversation. It could even be a drawing. It could be whatever kind of art.
So for this conversation, like, let's say this has been recorded. This is checking in with Jorge Clar at the Remedy Diner in late November of late 2021. Is this an art piece?
Yeah. I mean, sure, because it's basically a framed moment. It's something that is done in a context, so it becomes a specific.
This moment will be replicated.
It's a specific scenario.
On a screen. People that we don't know will be able to watch it, and somebody will be affected by something you said or thought or felt, or how you reacted in a way that you may not have even understood.
Right, and it's not up to me to understand it either.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. When you do art, and it's I mean, that's what, you know, in my opinion, that's what, I mean, not just Duchamp, but many thinkers that have gone into areas beyond, you know, like the paradigms of their times, you know, discovered that it's all about a point of view. It's all about a frame of reference. It's all about a context. It's something, you may do something with a purpose in mind, and it does something completely different, you know, depending on what is receiving it. But in my opinion, but it goes further than that, because it's beyond intellect. It's beyond knowledge. It's more about what some people would call wisdom, which is intuition. It's just understanding that there is an energy. It's all about the energy. It's energy work.
All right, so can I propose something?
Yeah.
Close your eyes. Your glass of water.
Sorry.
Close your eyes and bring into this being that is Jorge Clar at this moment the greatest embodiment of wisdom and creative intelligence and love, and just let that fill this body, so this body becomes a vessel of wisdom, creative intelligence, love. And then look at the camera and give that to whomever's watching. and then just say thank you and good night.
Thank you. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you, Jorge.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.